In this video, I want to introduce you to a method of biblical studies that is called rhetorical criticism. Now, rhetorical criticism, it emerged in biblical studies in response to what became an overemphasis on genre. So we talked about genre last time. Now, what was happening in biblical studies would be that a text would be identified and quickly put into a group based on how it fit with its genre. Now, what happened, though, is then there was this overemphasis on this one text representing simply a type, a genre. And there was less attention given to the text itself and what it might contribute and say uniquely. What is this individual text saying? So in response, scholars began to emphasize that they paid attention to genre, but if they were looking, for instance, at a certain type of psalm, they would identify that it belongs to a certain group of psalms, but then they would ask, what does this psalm uniquely contribute? What is this psalm saying? So the positive is it moved back to focusing on the text itself. Now, the key understanding, key idea behind rhetorical criticism can be identified in this phrase right here, that it is a focus on form and content. Form and content. What that means is that a particular text has not only something to say, but there's a unique way in which it says it. And in fact, that form is part of what it's saying. So this is to recognize that genre, for instance, and how the text is structured actually contributes to its meaning. There's not just some proposition lying behind the text that we can abstract from it, but the form itself is intimately and intricately connected to what is being said. So a classic example of this, N.T. Wright, famous scholar, tells in one of his books about this ballet that someone else had attended, and watching this ballerina dance around beautifully and perform the routine. And at the conclusion of the ballet, someone approached and said, "That was beautiful dancing, but can you tell me what it meant?" And the ballerina responded, if I could tell you what it meant, I wouldn't need to dance it. Point being, the dance was connected to what was being communicated. You can't separate the two. There's not a proposition, an abstract proposition behind there. So in looking at texts from this perspective, what we're asking is, how is this form of the text actually connected to what is being communicated? If we're reading a psalm, we recognize this as poetic, worshipful praise, prayers, and so forth. That's intimately connected to what's being said. So as an example, I would invite you to look at the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, and ask not only what is being said, but how. Look at the details of how that text is communicating. So to have in mind for your purposes, when you're looking at a passage for an interpretive assignment or for whatever beyond this class, sermon, an exegesis paper, is to ask, how is the form of this, how is the structure of it, how is the genre of this text actually connected to what is being said in this text? And often you'll see, for instance, with a letter like Philemon that we recently looked at, that Paul is using rhetorical language to make a point. He's saying that he's giving Philemon the opportunity to respond in love and so forth, but he's using language that is exerting his authority even below the surface. So how is language being employed here? What's the form say about what's being communicated? Keep these things in mind as you look at text.